What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Listen up real quick. Just about everyone I know owns a trimmer. You know, the battery-powered or plug-in buzzer that trims your hair. And just about every guy has had a bad experience with a bad trimmer. Either the blades get dull, they start pulling hairs, or they're really loud, the motor feels weak, the battery dies, it freezes. I think it is time to upgrade to the Brio Beardscape. I've been using the Brio Beardscape for about once a week for a year now, and I have yet to charge it. I charged it when I first got it, and it still has a battery gauge on it, and it still has plenty of juice. I'm talking like 65, 70 shaves probably I've used this thing, and it's still going. The one of the reasons is the ceramic blade. It lubricates better. It cuts better than steel. You don't have to lubricate it very much. It has less resistance. It stays extremely sharp. It's lovely. And one of my other favorite things about it is how powerful it is. It's got a high horsepower motor in there. Although it doesn't make a lot of noise, think of it like, like a Tesla or something. Torque now and without much effort. It may be time for you guys out there to upgrade to the Beardscape. Go to Brio for Life. That's the word Brio, the number 4 life.com, and use code SMOKING at checkout. Brio4life.com, code SMOKING at checkout. I got the best price on the internet, my friend, on the Brio Beardscape. We're also brought to you by Dylan Optics sunglasses. You know those awesome glasses I'm wearing in every single video? Those are Dylan Optics sunglasses. The matte finish means you'll stand out in a crowd, but the quality of the lenses is what will keep you coming back again and again. Every time I'm out at a car show or wherever, and I see folks, they ask me about my Dylan Optics sunglasses, and I always let them try them on. They're always just like super shocked about the quality of the lenses on my Dylan Optics sunglasses. They're just like, oh my God, this is like HD life. And if you go to thesmokingtire.com, under the partners tab, you can click on the Dylan banner right there. If you use that link on thesmokingtire.com under the partners tab, use that link to buy your Dylan Optics sunglasses, and I will send you a free Smoking Tire t-shirt for every pair you buy. It's very, very nice. My way of saying thank you for supporting the people who support us. All right, on this show, we've got a guest I am super, super stoked to have here. I've been trying for about, 2 years to get Mr. Jeff Zwart in studio. Jeff is one of the busiest mans in show business, as you say it. He is not only a photographer, he is a videographer, a cinematographer, a director, a producer. He is a racing driver with many, many Pikes Peak wins to his name. He's raced in the WRC championship. He won the U.S. Rally championship. The dude is a legend, and he's a legend in the Porsche community, as well as a legend in the automotive media community. So considering I'm in both of those clubs, this dude is a massive hero of mine. Jeff Zwart on the Smoking Tire Podcast. Zoom in, sir. All right.
So we're on already?
Now. Okay. You're looking at now, sir.
Okay, got
it's
it.
The Smoking Tire Podcast.
It's before 5.
Friday afternoon. We're a little early. That's okay. That's the best part about it. It doesn't matter. If you they get a little notification. It's like the ding,
really?
They're live. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
In theory.
Cool.
Other people get mad.
Good. I'm glad you were standing in the parking lot then.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. I hope my phone is silent.
Oh yeah, I gotta check that too.
Legend Jeff Zwart is in the studio, turning his phone to silent. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. It's only taken me 2 years to get you on the show, but it's
slow.
You are like the most traveled person that there is. I think. I mean,
it does.
How many airlines do you have 1 million miles on right now?
I just have one, but I have a lot of millions with one.
How many millions?
2 million.
2 million?
Yeah.
All right.
With United.
You're United?
Well,
is that where JF got it?
I lived in Colorado for 25 years.
All they serve?
Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes you have no choice.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you are finally in LA with a voice, allegedly.
Yes. We'll see how long it holds out.
It will. Do you have like a little Ricola thing happening?
Yeah, I do.
You're golden. Share with the group, buddy. No, yeah, dude. You know how to earn a living in a really great way. You have figured out
the I don't know, the secret to what, maybe work-life balance? Can we call it that?
Yeah, I think that, it's kind of perpetual motion in a way where, what I do feeds me in so many ways, and it serves so many needs personally and just from, an entertainment standpoint. Because, the things that I get to photograph for the most part are influenced by my own racing. Mm-hmm. And then my racing is influenced by my filming.
Totally.
It's just,
each one kicks the ball like a little to the next thing.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's funny because I often describe that, my rallying and racing down roads like that is just high-speed location scouting.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You are a master of recce.
Yep, that's for
you're
sure.
so good at it, they gave you a trophy.
For sure. I was national champion.
What is the best rental car you have wrecked?
Oh, boy. It was better in the old days when you could just kick off the air cleaner and have the police pursuit sound.
Yeah.
That was it.
The
Fling that out the window right away.
Were you ever like part of those, you've heard those stories of the people who like fucking swapped engines out of rental cars?
Never went that far, but there was.
Were you privy to that actually happening in period, as it were?
I heard funny story because I used to cover the runoffs, the SCCA runoffs. And I used to hear funny stories that happened for people in the parking lot at that event. So because it was the national championship, and
you really, really need that steering rack.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We see that in our little cheap car racing that we do sometimes too. You'll see someone who, my friend Jack Baruth and his wife Charlie, they pulled a gearbox out of their daily driver to go into the race car and then broke it. And it's like, oh no!
I actually don't doubt it because even when I was running the Pro Rally Championship, it was. The cars we were driving were still relatively obscure.
Yeah.
So a Mazda 323 or, those things, which is what I was racing.
Were you in a 323 with one of those amazing 6-cylinders? Did it have a 6?
No, it was a turbo.
Oh, this was old. This is before that.
Yeah, this
not
is
the weird
89.
froggy one.
No, this is 89.
Oh, okay.
89,
It looked
90.
like more of like a normal car,
a little
right?
hatchback.
Yeah, right. Okay,
So,
cool.
and I ran one of those, and I remember, people, there were several of them running in the events, and there was always the need for taking something off a spectator's car.
You need really helpful spectators.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you need to push.
People who weren't in a hurry to go home.
Yeah. Fuck. Rallying is the greatest sport that is the hardest sport to watch. It's like, it's just, except for, the occasional WRC, helicopter and 70 cameras, it's just impossible to watch.
It was even worse in the U.S. because of the, basically how dangerous it was to run on public roads.
Yeah.
Everything when I was running was at night. Literally, the rallies wouldn't start till at night, and
just because there'd be less traffic and stuff on the roads.
Less traffic, and if somebody was coming the other way, you'd see headlights and all that sort of thing. But literally, our rally championship was maybe two stages in the daytime, everything at night. Which, you go to a sponsor and say, I want to run a full championships. We're cheap. And by the way, it runs in the dark.
By the way, no one's going to see the stickers.
Yeah.
How in hindsight was it like? How much scarier is it to rally at night?
It's fortunately kind of all equal to everything. But I will say, I drove in the World Championship Rally in New Zealand, and I drove a Mitsubishi Evo, and I had, a full-on WRC co-driver for me to work with, and he had told me that with notes, I'll be just as fast in the night as I was in the day. And we went and ran in the New Zealand Rally, ran a stage twice, once in the day and once in the night. And that was absolutely true. When you started dialing in on the notes and just fully listening to it and going very little by what you were seeing, it was pretty amazing.
Like, was it good enough where you'd almost like, I could close my eyes? And
No. But I do remember the stage that we ran in the day, and then we ran at night. There was 3 jumps, 3 rises. And I just remember we were like, the first one was flat, the second one was a lift, and the third one was flat.
Okay.
And so you're coming down these rises, and you come over the first one flat, and your headlights are aimed up high in the trees, and then they come down and they reveal that, okay, that was flat.
Yeah.
The next one, was like a Crest 4 or something. So you're back off a bit, headlights go up in the tree, and then it comes down and you see immediately why it was a Crest 4. So then you hit the third one, and you've already seen what it's like if you get that screwed up.
Yeah.
And you hit the third one, and I just remember flat out, foot straight to the floor, and no way was my mind saying that's what should be happening. And I leave my foot down, and those headlights just stayed in the trees. The jump was much bigger than I thought it was. And I was just thinking, we aren't even... I don't see anything ahead.
We are off-road at this point.
And when the headlights came down, it was like, okay, it's a straight road.
That's
it was like,
I did a tiny little jump in a car once, like the tiniest little bullshit tabletop where I think I probably traveled the length of this table in the air, like not very far. It was the most fun thing I've ever done. It's jumping a car, if you know that it's going to be okay, is the just...
Especially when the landings are really nice. A downhill landing is just like, it's like you never left the ground, but they're just
like those long jump skiers.
Yeah. It's
where you
totally
just like it's just a carry.
Yep.
I love watching that glide. It's lovely. So, all right. You have had an extraordinary career that's still ongoing. Certainly nowhere near done of racing, of photography, of cinematography, directing. You got this movie with Patrick Dempsey coming out. Where do we even start? We got to go back to like the 60s. All right.
Okay.
Is that my phone I hear vibrating behind the camera?
But
it is.
We can't hear it.
Oh my God! It's gonna drive me nuts. 2 seconds. That's gonna drive me insane. Enough battery to get home. All right. Sorry. Where do we go? 1964.
Yeah.
Porsche 901.
Yeah.
We start there.
Sure, we could start there.
Apparently, your pops had one of these things just as a car.
Yep.
Just as a car.
And that was a funny thing is that, my parents usually had a Volkswagen Bug and something bigger.
In California?
California for the most part, but Delaware also, so we kind of split the coast.
Okay.
And in Delaware, actually, we got a 1964 356C.
Is that the one with the skis on it? On your
no, yeah, that is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So 1964 356C, and that was the first and only new Porsche my dad ever got. And so but the interesting thing is, happened about a month before my birthday, and they said, for your birthday, we're going to take a trip in this new car. And I thought that was so cool. And we went to the Indy 500.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I was pretty well sold on Porsches and sold on racing when I got there. So
totally.
It was cool. But going, further along that, my father did buy a used 911. And we always kind of knew it was an early 911. But, that 911s were progressing fairly quickly. And, it was just kind of an old 911. Well, we were at Riverside Raceway at one of the Porsche Owner Clubs things, and there was a guy there who said, "Oh, I've got chassis number 29 of a Porsche 911. Yeah, the 29th car built." And my dad goes, "Oh, I think our car's a really early car." And so when he looked at his number there at Riverside, he said, "Oh, ours is 35." And still, that was like no big deal. It was just really old.
Yeah.
It was the 35th 911. Well, in hindsight, this was a 901, the true, before.
Yeah, it's like $1 million now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, and my dad loves hearing that. And
does he still have it?
No, he doesn't.
That would be extraordinary.
That would be crazy good.
Yeah.
But that's the car I learned to drive in. And
rad.
And I just, for me, we went to Los Alamitos racetrack parking lot. It was the biggest area near our house I couldn't run into anything. And I remember my dad came downstairs that morning and said, on Sunday morning, he says, "Okay, you're going to learn to drive today, and we're going to take the 911 because it has more power and you won't stall it."
He's probably right.
Yeah.
He's right. You need a little torque.
But, this was like first gear way over and all the kind of wacky stuff. And, I just remember settling in there, and it had a wooden steering wheel. And I just remember grabbing a hold of the steering wheel, and your feet are over on the side, and this first gear is way down, and clutch and everything seemed, it was just such a, I think we all remember the first drive.
Yeah.
And then, here I am, how many years later.
First time I drove an air-cooled Porsche, I was like, none of this makes any sense.
Exactly.
I'd only driven like normal, modern cars. And I got in like, I don't know, it was like an 82 or something. I was probably like 17, and I was like, what? This is... You guys, this is hinged on the floor. The pedals are hinged on the floor. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
It was really bizarre, really different from anything else.
Yeah, it was. But for me,
but if that's your only experience,
I'd always ridden in this car.
Now you get in a Corvette, you're like, what's wrong with this thing? It's super weird.
So I took off, drove around the parking lot there, and I mean, it was so special. But to think back on it now, and especially where I've kind of traveled through the Porsche world, to think that was my first car.
I would say so.
Yep.
I would say you have.
Yeah.
You could probably, have you tracked that vehicle down?
Yeah, well, okay. So Road and Track did a story on this subject of me, what I learned to drive in. And I actually had heard that the car had been stolen. My dad sold it to somebody in Seattle. I heard the car had been stolen. And then some reader in Road and Track, as they do, went clear to the bottom of it and actually
found it,
and found that it was truly stolen, and actually talked to the widow of the guy who had bought the car. So it was confirmed again. And if you look, you can imagine, for those first 100 cars or whatever, there's quite a registry.
Yeah.
And chassis 35 is always a blank.
That's so sad that it's a blank.
Well, it's
like
funny.
It's like
now,
a missing man kind of thing.
And it's now identified as my dad's car, so it's kind of cool. Though.
Well, the guy, whoever got it is stuck with it.
Yeah, but you know what?
Selling it now.
But you know what happened in those days is, and I remember it clearly because you were involved in the Porsche Club. If a car got stolen, fenders were cut off. Everything was taken out of it. It was worth more for its parts than it was for a car. So
yeah, the Integra Type R formula, as it were. Yeah. All right, so you now know how to drive. You've got a family with some Porsches, and at what point do you decide photography, cinematography is going to be a career, or that you're going to drive race cars on the side? Pick a fork.
Oh yeah, well, definitely. I was really attracted to racing, but nobody in my family was, knew anything about it other than we liked to go to it as a spectator. I mean, my dad took me to Riverside all the time and to races whenever he could because he was a big fan. But the thing that happened is that I just didn't, I wasn't mechanically inclined. Didn't know how to become a driver. And I was living in Germany.
Did someone nudge you and say, it helps if you're rich first. Start on that.
Well, and in that time, I don't even remember that part of it. I just remember that, when I was in Germany and I was studying to be a veterinarian, I was over there and I was going to races when I could on the weekends. And the people that were closest to the action and on the other side of the fence from where I was were the photographers.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just said, geez, I'm not mechanically inclined. I don't know anything about driving, but if I want to be around racing, why don't I become a photographer? And then so I shot races while I was over there and kind of did things along the way. And I wrote my parents a letter saying, I just don't think veterinary medicine's where I should be. I really want to come home and study photography. And that was kind of wild for my parents to take because they weren't of art kind of background. And I remember my dad said, well,
Did you have interest in the kind of artsy version of it as well, or did you just like doing kind of action sports type stuff?
Action sports. Yeah. I mean, I liked photographing.
Like a neolifer kind of fan?
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember photographing. I wanted to photograph things I liked being around.
Yeah.
And so that was the main thing. And it was interesting because it wasn't, I just never equated to every billboard you drove by, every magazine you opened up, all the stuff that somebody was getting paid to do that stuff. I just didn't.
In some cases, a lot.
Yeah, and I didn't have anybody that I'd grown up with doing that, so I didn't have an example. And it wasn't until I got to Art Center that they actually said, this is a career that's money-making career as opposed to, and
so you went to Art Center here.
Yes.
And from your time there, they taught you that this can be a business and here's how you do it.
Yeah, the difference between...
I'm so fucking jealous of that. I went to art school. I studied photography at UPenn, like the best business school in the country. I studied art and it was all fucking frou-frou high concept shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, how do I make money at this? Teach me, please. And I wish they did that, and I should have gone to Art Center where they did that.
And that was the difference is I looked at RIT, I looked at Brooks, I looked at Art Center, and when I got to Art Center, there's really maybe only 10% of the teachers are full-time. They're actually
they're industry
people working in
right?
it. And I remember maybe the 4th or 5th week of school, we went to this photographer who had a studio. One of my instructors had a studio, and he got to park his cars inside his studio.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought that was the coolest.
Yeah.
It's like a Dan Tana moment.
No, shit, even as an adult, it's almost like a really nice treat. A studio big enough for a car, with like a nice, fresh seamless, and like, ooh, a softbox?
Yeah.
Ooh, gimme.
When I saw that, I was like sold. I go, I gotta do this thing. So,
and for those who don't know, Arts Center in Pasadena, by the way, is also where a lot of car designers end up going. They have a great program for that. Like literally drawing and doing interiors and all clays and all that kind of crazy shit.
Yeah, and that was the fun thing for me is because, generally everybody there was wanting to shoot tabletop things or girls or whatever. I was just there to shoot cars. and so nobody in photography, the photography classes were really interested in the car thing, but I had this whole transportation design group there. So I got to be buddies with a lot of the guys there who went on and did lots of great things. And I grew up with Freeman Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of cool because, he did the TT, did so many great things along the way. But
not a lightweight.
Yeah, no.
It's like he's like Mr. kind of Bauhaus, right?
Yeah, totally. So
baseball glove stitch seats.
Yes, that's exactly right.
God, why didn't those last?
That was awesome.
When will there be a throwback? It's got to be time. Maybe on Audi's whatever their version of the Taken is, the Sport GTE or whatever. Whatever that's called.
Yeah.
e-tron GT.
Because that actually looks like a pretty good car too. So
throw the baseball stitch on there.
That'll be it.
They'll pay for it. They'll pay for it. Give me some leather vents and a leather fuse box and all that crazy shit. Art Center must have been what years were you there?
77 to 79.
Must have been a good time.
Yeah, it was definitely, and it was when they just had moved to the new campus with the building, the new building, and
that building's really cool.
And it's still cool.
Yeah, it's
I think
cool
it's an Elwood design building, and it was just like. It was cool, and it was so different than my kind of science and biology kind of background that I was studying before. So it was great, and I skateboarding every afternoon and kind of. It was just the full on, and
full California,
and like I lived like 45, 50 miles away from it. So once you got there, you were fully, immersed in school.
Yeah,
so it was good.
That we're talking about obviously film and the business of photography. I think, although it's sort of settled a bit now, for between 2000 and 2015, it's a little kind of like. Whoa, how does anyone make any money that wasn't already here before? But like in the early 80s, what happens when you graduate with a degree in photography from Art Center? Do you get gigs like right away?
I was, they kind of presented it as you come out and you either be an intern for one of the photographers that came through, or, you could do it on your own, which is what I chose to do. And it was kind of funny. I was going to school during the gas crisis, and every manufacturer is trying to figure out how to, milk every gallon out of the car. Yeah. And I graduated in the turbocharged era because I graduated in 79, so all of a sudden, Porsche was on the market and everybody was just gearing up.
Gail
for that.
Banks was making banks.
Yeah. And so it was really a kind of a turbocharged era for me to come into, and my world was all about racing and doing that stuff. And so my highest aspiration at Art Center was to someday shoot something for Road and Track magazine. My very first assignment was to shoot a cover for them.
Fuck out of here. Your very
first assignment.
What was it?
It was with a what would it have been, a 300Z or it was a Z.
See, now is that like... So is that almost deflating? Because it's like, well, now what? Where do I go?
No,
is it as awesome
it.
as I think it would have been?
Yeah.
Because it was my dream as a kid to write for Road and Track. And now I do write for Road and Track. And I when I see like the banner, and especially in a print magazine, it feels nice.
Yeah. And
it's good to see my name there.
And that was kind of my motivation too, was that, I just wanted to shoot. I just love shooting.
What was your into Road and Track? What was your relationship to getting into that magazine?
Funny enough is that when I lived in Europe when I made one of my first trips to Europe, before I even lived there, in 73, I was there, and I went to the Porsche factory when it was closed, and went to the back
like Wally
fence.
World, like you just showed up with
and I went to the back fence of it, and there were the 74 cars sitting there with the bumpers, the G models, with the new bumpers on them. So
Are we talking like spy shooting? Is
yeah.
that what,
okay, I wasn't thinking about it as spying. It was just that I happened to be, at the factory.
You happened to catch them.
Yeah, and I shot those, and shot the pictures, and then I didn't really know what to do with them. But I knew that the guy at Road and Track that was totally in the Porsches was Joe Roos, and so I brought Joe Roos pictures of the 74 bumpers.
Like in person?
I went there in person. Yeah. Went there in person and brought them to him. And I said, it was really good, and all this stuff. And he was glad to see the pictures. But it kind of opened the door. Yeah. And so then, 5 years later or whatever, I was there and got my first gig.
I think when you said it before, I think I misunderstood it as saying like your first gig out of college was to shoot a cover for Road and Track.
It was. Oh, it wasn't my first. No, my first gig was
your first gig with them.
Yeah, with them.
Okay.
They instead of just doing an editorial small story, I ended up shooting a cover. So
still very beast, but not as beast as here's a diploma, and by the way, we want you for the cover.
No.
What was your first gigs out of school?
Funny things that kind of either through family or whatever I had some connections with. Like one of my parents' friends worked at Global Van Lines, so I shot Global Van Line,
it's like buses,
brochures.
Right?
They were the movers.
Oh,
movers,
right.
Old movers.
Yeah.
So I'd shoot houses getting moved in and out.
Nice.
And then there was some sort of vitamin company I shot for.
Oh, these are good ones.
And then also On Track magazine with Paul Oxman existed, and I did some things for them. And Sports Car magazine. Actually, I was shooting for Sports Car magazine because they were the SCCA racing magazine. Yeah. I shot for them even while I was in school.
Oh, cool. So you were definitely working.
Yeah, no, I was. So I didn't choose the intern way, and
I chose the slave way. You know who I was a slave for?
Who?
You probably know him. Michael Furman.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Out of college, I was a slave for Michael Furman for a little bit.
East Coast, Boston.
East Coast, just briefly.
Yeah,
but it was very cool to watch this dude work. Tim,
get a
Michael Furman photograph because it's studio classic cars in studios with the biggest softbox you've ever seen.
And he was like he was doing it before anybody. And he's still,
he's still going.
I talked to him last year, so he's still up. So
he's still going. Yeah,
that's good.
The detail work he would get with the light was incredible.
And he just shot things in a different way than anybody. Yeah. And I remember his studio. He kind of was like all in one living in studio or something like that. Yeah, it was like, to me, it was like my fantasy. Like that was too cool. So
I think is it FUA. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So all that top row there, he shot the whole Ralph Lauren book.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
The work is very. It's got a very specific look.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
No, and I'm glad to see him still doing it. He actually has a pop up every year at Monterey Week.
He does.
Yeah.
Look at that GT1.
Yeah. Yep.
Have you driven a GT1?
Yes, I have.
Is it the best?
It's funny because it's
a street car or race car or both?
I've driven both.
Okay.
But I drove the street car just last summer, I think, and it's a funny thing because you sit in it and it, somewhat 9/11 feeling, but you feel so buried in it. Like there's such a big car around you, but it's one of those cars where the faster you drive it, the smaller it gets. But what was funny is it's feels kind of 911 the way you sit in it, but it's fully 962 the way it sounds.
Just craziness.
Yeah, and it's just deep and it torque and it just pulls like crazy, and it's a cool car.
Is it? Well, that ain't it, Tim. That's a Bugatti.
No, I know.
He's
Michael.
He's still on the Michael Furman. Yeah. The GT1 is it 911-y ish, like in how it drives, or is it just a completely different thing?
It's full 962. The way it feels in the bushings and the suspension and the lack of movement on the car itself when you're driving it, it's full race car. So
are the street versions remotely streetable?
I think,
or is it kind of a joke?
It's a bit of a joke because of the overhangs.
Yeah,
it's just like getting in anywhere. I mean, certainly if you were to drive...
If you had one, you were pretty much a boss. If you had a street car, would I be seeing you in it and Trancas and shit, though?
I drive a 906 up there.
That's true, you did. Did you sell it?
No, I still have the 906.
Were you going to sell it?
No, 906 is a keeper.
I thought you were... I don't know why I thought you were taking it to some heavy hitter auction to sell.
Nope.
That thing rules.
Yeah, it's neat. Because it weighs 1,400 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, like I always say, like manufacturers have figured out how to replicate everything, but they can't make
lightweight. Yeah. They can hide it or try to, but it doesn't really
the
work.
nimble nature of that, and the fact that there's this
you
much
got
fiberglass.
to cook in their thing though. The bubble top.
Oh, yeah.
Can you, Tim, get a picture of a Porsche 906? It's a bubble canopy kind of mid-engine Le Mans type race car. Does yours have a race history?
Interestingly,
add Zwart to the search and you'll get his specific
car. When I got the car, it came with the logbooks, and all the first races were. That's it.
I saw this motherfucker at Cars and Coffee with this thing like a boss. This thing rules, but you must be cooking in the summer in there.
Well, it's funny when you realize when you look at the Targa Florio pictures of the car, they have the top of the windows all taped down. So it takes care of that.
So it
but it
scoops it in?
I drove it to Monterey once from here, and it has gas enough to drive an hour.
Yeah.
Well, in an hour, you're ready to get out.
Yeah. You have body enough to drive 30 minutes.
Peter Egan and I drove it up there.
That's a story.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Was that a road and track story at one point?
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta dig that one out. I have my old issues.
97.
I guarantee you, I have.
Yeah.
I have every road and track from '89 till today.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah, I got a big catalog. I was obsessed.
That was my favorite magazine growing up too.
But you also managed to not just shoot editorials, but also shoot like the official manufacturer photography, including some of my favorite Porsche ads. The Kills Bugs Fast. Did you shoot Kills Bugs?
No, but I did the jumping turbo.
You did the jumping one.
Yeah.
I might be conflating the two.
No, but the jumping turbo, and that was like a poster in Seinfeld's apartment.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. So, the funny part was we shot that, and I don't know, it was probably 6 months later. If you remember, they did a mailing of those jumping shots to all potential Porsche customers, and I got it, and it had Jeff on the license plate. They put your license plate, your name on the license plate.
That's awesome.
But it was quite a famous shot. So
I love that.
And a funny story in shooting it too. So
yeah, because didn't you recce that in like your own car or something?
Yeah, on the Volvo, which
cross
was
country.
It was. Let's just say the test jump was a little bigger than we thought. But it was better than doing it in the turbo.
It was a 993, right?
It was a 964.
964 turbo?
Yeah.
Tim's just trying to find pictures.
Yeah.
Good luck, sir.
No.
Man.
Jumping turbo Porsche.
What was your first film camera? I'm going to nerd out on cameras for a minute.
Super 8.
Yeah?
In high school, I shot Super 8 movies.
Oh, okay.
But never equating it that I might do it someday. It was just something that was fun to do. Mm-hmm. And I used to shoot like Laguna Seca and Riverside with it and stuff. So, but it was a Minolta Super 8.
When did you first start getting professional video gigs?
Well, that was actually a definitive transition. American Photographer did a story on me of being the high performance photographer. Basically that's all I did was high performance, and they did a cover story, a whole piece on it. And American Photographer was the definitive American photography magazine, and in there, I just kind of told my whole story of shooting all this high action stuff. Well, out of that, 3 offers came to join production companies, and I ended up joining Radical Media, but the thing was, I thought there'd be like a 2-year transition.
Yeah.
What was nice is I had so many clients already from advertising, and I was shooting virtually all of Porsche, most of Mercedes, all of BMW, and then a bunch of American clients, everything, but all of BMW. I was the Ultimate Driving Machine when it was really that way. I shot everything. I mean, 60 ads a year.
A lot of models to be promoting.
Oh, totally. And but it was cool because in those days,
what were those ads? What was the aesthetic of those? I don't really remember
high action
them.
35 millimeter. Remember the M3 with the front wheel lifted off the ground? I shot that.
Oh, cool.
So it was that kind of thing. But what was cool is in those days, advertising agencies would pick you for your look and stick with you, and it was their look. And I think for 3 years, I was the only BMW photographer. So, and everything looked that way. And I shot all the dealer I shot all the national advertising, all the dealer advertising, and all the dealer, posters and everything else. So I was probably doing 60 pieces a year.
That's a lot of work.
It was a ton.
Was that
of
your
stuff.
full-time gig, pretty much?
No,
you have other gigs too.
But like Porsche didn't have as much going on, and Mercedes.
Weren't they almost out of money?
Yeah,
I think they were, right?
Well, it was funny because when I shot the 964s, I think what would this have been, 93 probably or something. You could almost equate for the number of cars selling and how much they were paying me, how many dollars of each car was my fee. So
it was not a lot.
It was crazy.
Was it a couple thousand cars?
Yeah, like 3,000. So, which is just unbelievable.
It's probably like, there's a couple $100 out of
But,
car.
and look at it now, it's like, at least for me, I look at 964s as being one of the coolest cars around.
Yeah.
So,
they were the least cool for about 10 years.
Yeah. And remember, this was also.
How did that happen? Why were they so uncool?
I don't know whether it's uncool. It's just the sign of the times or something. Because this is when they just moved to Reno.
Yeah.
And they lengthened the runway because they thought they'd fly all the cars in with 747s. They were like, and Nevada gave them a great deal to be there and all this stuff. And it just nothing panned out in there. And then they moved to Atlanta and then things took off. So.
Why did they think Reno was going to be the thing?
Tax
advantage.
So,
that makes a lot of sense.
So,
yeah.
And they had
worked for Bill Harrah, I guess, for a while. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it was fun times because going back to the editorial side of things, in Road and Track, like you were saying, you get your name next to everything, and so. Instead of having a rep and things like that, I was just shooting as much as I could for Road and Track. I shot lots of covers for them, and there was just this identity that Jeff Zwart was doing this stuff editorially. How would that apply to my advertising? And then once the advertising kicked in, it took off. So, and I just transitioned in that. And you were talking about like how you come out of school and you get a Road and Track cover. What else do you do? Well, I really immediately kind of saw the big picture and saw how everything was working. And I actually never thought I'd be into film, but because of the area that I was shooting in, which was high action, because my high action style of photography carried through all sorts of things. And funny enough, I used to shoot a lot of Formula One races for Road and Track. And this just shows you how bizarre it is. I was shooting Formula One races. I get a call from Northrop Aviation.
Yeah.
And they call me up and say, you need to come in and we would like to talk to you about shooting some of our advertising. I go, well, what would that be? I get into this meeting. They have all my Formula One stuff laid out on the conference table. And they're saying, if you can stop Formula One cars, do you think you could do something with our fighter planes?
Yeah.
And so I started with the project of the F-20, which was this third world country kind of, it was a private fighter plane, that you could get.
That they were selling to
they were going to sell to other countries and do things. And it was a spin-off of the T-38 and the F-5 and that sort of thing. But so the first one I shot was red, white, and black, all sports card out. It was really cool. And then we
Are you doing plane to plane? Or are you shooting that from the runway or what?
So here's the deal.
Listen, I'm going to need to go up there.
Yeah. Well, so here's the deal is that I shot, they didn't have any two-seaters of the F-20, but we used one of the F-20s in a BMW shot, group of cars that I was shooting, and we painted it BMW gray.
Oh, perfect.
The plane. And after that, then we started shooting it all over again. And that all came from my association with BMW. Well, then they took on the F-18 program. And all of a sudden, I was Martin Baker, ejection seat certified. And awesome. I was flying all the time on different missions. And
that's so cool.
They never fly for you, dedicated to you.
Yeah, but you just go out with them.
So I'd get to a briefing in the morning and they would be, okay, today we're going to do high G dog fights and you'll be able to shoot on the transition out there and shoot on the transition back.
And are they doing this to develop the planes or to train pilots or to
this is all
different
I was
stuff?
With the Navy.
You're with the Navy. You're not with Northrop at this point. You're with the Navy.
No, well, I'm still working for Northrop, but I'm flying with the Navy.
Yeah. Oh,
and
crazy.
so I was with VFW 125, which is based in Lemoore, but I went through all my ejection seat simulation, all my
what was that
water
like?
survival. Oh, it was wild because the ejection seat simulator was 8 to 9 Gs.
Okay.
So then...
And what do they physically do in an ejection seat simulator?
Okay, so you go through all the, you get all the lowdown and training, and then you sit in the ejection seat, which is the full-on ejection seat, and it has a big ramp up above you, like 2 stories up. And basically, you're sitting in there, and then they call for the ejection, and you get into your position to do it, and then they launch you up. 18
up like
feet,
a railing,
up a rail.
Yeah,
but it was 8 to 9 Gs. Now, a real ejection is 18 to 19 Gs, and they would give you stats like only like 30% of them are without some sort of injury.
Yeah,
all sorts of things, and they puncture through the canopy. Because it's a carrier-based plane, it doesn't have time for
the canopy.
Yeah, so it has a splitter on top of the seat.
No way.
Yeah, so
that whole like blowing the canopy first thing is bullshit.
Some planes do. No,
Okay.
some planes do,
yeah.
but not all planes do. So because I was Martin Baker certified, and you carried a card. I used to have a card.
Do you have the Bremont watch?
No,
you have to get the Bremont ejection seat watch. It's like a very special thing.
But the funny thing is I used to fly on these missions, and we would I would have all my camera. I'd have 2 camera bodies, lenses, and there's no room, so they're kind of sitting in your lap.
Yeah,
and you go, I'm not going to eject out of here with all this stuff. So
it's like a 5D, flying.
Yeah.
It's like,
so
that's
the
so wow. Yeah, that's the Bremont.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're ejection seat certified, you can buy this special Bremont Martin Baker edition watch. And the watch is meant to survive the ejection seat.
Well, good. That's probably would have been the only
if
thing.
If you want
to
one, I have the hookup.
Yeah,
if you want to get down on it, yeah.
Good. Well, I will tell you a funny story though. Is that we were formation flying back to the base one day, and we're flying along, and literally the planes are all flying wingtip to wingtip out there. And the way they create the gap for landing is they peel off, and then the next one peels off, and the next one peels off, and that's the gap. So
it's very dramatic.
Yeah, so it's real dramatic. So I'm shooting all this outside the window, and funny enough, because it was all glass canopy, we'd put up a black curtain in there so that I could pull the curtain between me and the glass so it didn't reflect
no
myself.
Reflection.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
So it wasn't real comfortable, all the stuff going on in there.
Yeah.
So first plane peels off, and I'm shooting this, and I'm looking out over the wingtip, and the guy that's next to you is close enough that if he held a playing card, you could tell what it was. It was seriously close. So the first plane peels off, second plane peels off, third plane peels off, and the plane right next to me, I'm getting ready, this will be really good. I shoot it. When he peels off, it never occurred to me we were going to peel off.
so you're just not ready.
So this plane goes, bam, I just think, oh, that's good. I'm going to put my camera gear away. And all of a sudden, bam, and my head goes down.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you had to secure your gear.
Yeah, where you're wearing a G suit, and my head goes down, and of course, your reaction is to snap your head back up, and it's just like everything blink, 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 went down to this little, and I'm thinking, I can't go, and then I just get this little white dot, and I was like, oh, I'm gone, and then boom, it all came back.
That's crazy.
That was the closest I came to passing.
That's pretty awesome, though. Flying around fighter planes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, so that's
pretty beyond most typical photographers' gigs. That's pretty extraordinary.
I was very fortunate. Northrop really gave me a lot of opportunity, and because I had Martin Baker ejection seat certification, I flew in everything. I flew in F-16s. I flew in sub chase. I flew in all different kinds of things.
That's the dopest shit ever.
So
you've been off a carrier?
Well, that's a funny story. I sailed out of the San Francisco port underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, which was wild because the carrier. You know how you see that gap underneath
under the bridge?
It barely made. No, this is on the carrier.
Oh, yeah.
And you barely make it under there with you when you're on that ship. It's big that you're literally looking up right at the bottom of the bridge. So we go down and it's sunset time. We wake up. This is how fast those carriers are. We wake up off the coast of Mexico.
From San Francisco?
From San Francisco.
Overnight?
Overnight.
That's fast.
Oh, yeah.
What are those things doing, like 30?
They more than that. These
Really?
things are with nuclear reactors, everything.
That's a good point.
So,
They are nuclear.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So I'm so we get down there and we do sea trials for 5 days. And so I'd been through water survival. I'd been through all this stuff. The very first day, I'm shooting on the deck, and the very first day, one of the arresting hooks breaks on one of the F-18s, and they grounded all backseat.
Oh, that sucks.
So I was out there 5 days, but it was a phenomenal.
You still got a
experience.
5-day vacation on an aircraft carrier.
It was a phenomenal experience.
They take care of you? Like,
you slept in the officers' quarters.
That's what I'm talking about. None of this
no
bunk
hot bunking.
shit. Yeah.
No. The hot bunking I wasn't looking forward to. So,
yeah.
What
is that like to spend a couple days on a carrier with no real work obligations?
Well, no, I was shooting everything on deck. It was really cool because it would be nothing going on. Mm-hmm. So I'd be just
so you could have an empty deck.
Yeah. So there'd be nothing going, and then all of a sudden there'd be 300 landings and takeoffs a day, kind of thing. That's crazy. And it would just light up like as fast as planes were hitting the deck, they're putting them down below or they're resetting them, and it's total. It just seems like it's just chaos, but it's not. And the interesting thing too is you're wearing a vest that actually the color means where you can go. And I had a green vest, which meant I could go anywhere. And it was wild because, there was no chaperones or anything. I was like,
just wandering
out
around
there and, I'd have to watch the guys on the deck of what's going on. But it was serious. So
yeah,
it was good.
That's awesome. What a great gig.
Yeah,
how cool is that?
Yeah, it was good. So that kind of thing really defined me as being this high action photographer, and it led to the American Photographer story, and that story then ultimately gave me 3 offers to direct television commercials.
How great.
So that's where it went.
So when did weekend racing when did it become a more serious thing? Because entering it's one thing to do a couple local rallies, but like going to New Zealand and entering a WRC race is not exactly, unless you're Bill Caswell, in which case it's a Thursday.
I like that. I like what Bill did. It's awesome. But
Bill's a lunatic. He's a nut.
He's great. I've been at a few events with him, but he's really great. I mean, I just love that.
He'll call you for lunch, and then like at 4 a.m, you're still at the bar. Like, how did this happen? What's going on?
No, it was funny when I first got out of school. I was doing things for Sports Car Magazine or whatever, and I went to driving schools to do stories. And so I went to Bondurant School, went to British School of Motor Racing, and went to Jim Russell School. And it was kind of one of those things where, thank goodness for it, but it was like an immersion thing where the writer and the photographer just basically went through the school and shot it. So I went through that.
Free school.
Yeah. So the 3 schools that I did, basically, I was the quickest guy. And the guys kept saying, "Oh, you should look into doing this." Well, of course they want everybody to become a racer.
Of course they do, yeah.
But
it's not as bad as being a pilot. You have to be a pilot. It's like, here's your 30-minute test flight. Okay, now you have to sign up for $20,000 in classes. That take 2 years. Yeah,
right. Well, so anyway, I had a lot of positive feedback that I should really be doing more racing, and it was the British School of Motor Racing. Actually had a pro racing series, a Formula Ford racing series on the West Coast here. And they had really liked what I'd done in the school, and so they invited me into that. And so I ran 3 or 4 races on the West Coast here at Riverside and Laguna Seca and ran in the pro Ford series. Well, once that was over, I didn't really have much else to do. So
and that was that literally just buy a car, enter the races? They
had a race series. They had a race series where
so arrive and drive.
Yeah, arrive and drive.
Sort of like Skippy's Spec Miata series or whatever.
So I ran that on the West Coast, which was kind of their pro series, meaning everybody paid to do it, and so
pro, which is the opposite of.
Yeah. So then after that, basically I went back to work and shot all these things and.
Did you do well in formula cars?
Mm-hmm, yeah, I did. I was a better qualifier than racer, but time told with the racing it was good. And so,
open wheel cars, man. When you start going wheel to wheel and open wheel, it's a different kind of balls you need. Yeah. I don't personally have it. Open wheel cars scare me.
Yeah, I have never really felt much different in either one of the open wheel or sports cars or whatever. But funny enough, on a Mazda job, the Mazda client demanded that I work with one of their drivers. and their driver was Rod Millen. And I said, no, I've got my own drivers. I don't need, I'm fine. I don't need Rod Millen. Well, they said, well, you need to work with him because he's under contract with us now. Well, Rod and I shot together on the first job, and I ended up doing a lot of Mazda work, so we shot together a lot. We ended up becoming really good friends.
Rod rules.
Yeah, and Rod was fantastic, and he was running in the rally championship, and I'd always loved rallying, but I just didn't know how to get into it.
How do I do it?
Yeah, and so here I was working with a national champion, the whole deal. He had a full fab shot, all that stuff. And it was actually his brother who was chasing me one day in rental cars. We were screwing around in rental cars going back to location. He goes, you should really look into rallying. You should.
That'd be his brother, Steve. Steve Millen. So it was good friend of the show. He's been on the show a bunch.
So Steve was actually the one that said the words, you should really look into rallying because you'd be pretty good at it. And so I went back to Rod and I said, well, what can I do? And he said, well, let's build you a production GT car, an entry-level 323. So I ran one season, kind of half a season of production GT, did pretty well in it.
How did you get a co-driver?
A friend of mine from school, he's
someone very brave.
He's an architect, and he just said, he loved rallying too, and we decided to set out and do it. And so then, as it happens in racing, Rod was getting the latest, greatest all the time from Mazda, so there were a lot of hand-me-downs, and he said, why don't we build you an open class car so you can go for the overall wins.
Open class is like all-wheel drive turbo, typically, right?
And it was the same car I was driving in production GT, but my production GT was production.
Right.
So then this was going to be completely modified. Well, Rod had all the good stuff, the Group A transmission and the big turbos and all this stuff. So I took all his hand-me-downs. He built me an open class car, and basically,
was all this happening in New Zealand or
here? And so I was running the U.S. Pro Rally Championship, and this came together. And at the end of my 1990 season, which was basically 2 years in, I tied for the overall national championship and won open class championship.
That's so awesome.
So and that was and the funny thing is, and I mean, Mazda is so wonderful in motorsports, and with the Miata program, and obviously the stuff going on in prototypes now, and I love all the guys. I've shot a lot of commercials, but I kind of came out of that. Well, what could I maybe do this in the Porsche world?
Yeah,
but that was 1990, and what happened in 1990 was the Carrera 4.
Oh yeah,
and so the Carrera 4 came along, and I thought, well, that's an all-wheel drive Porsche. Let's see what we can do. So it took me 2 years to kind of figure it out, and then in '92 I got serious with Porsche. Said I'd love to run a Carrera 4 in the U.S. Rally Championship. So they helped out in making all of the Paris-Dakar stuff available to me.
Oh,
so I got all of the Paris-Dakar.
Were they driving Carrera 4s in Paris to Dakar?
No, but they built
leftover.
Yeah, remember when they had a Carrera 4 lightweight? They made 20 of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were going to run one of the Carrera 4 lightweights in the championship, and I couldn't get a version that was going to be legal for road usage because it had to be. So I ended up
show and display.
So Jürgen Barth and Porsche Motorsport all worked together, and they sent me all of the stuff. So we built a Carrera 4.
That car?
Yes. Yeah. So
I've seen this car in person a couple weeks ago
in the rain. In the pouring rain. So that car has full Paris-Dakar running gear, transmission, diffs, and it's got two knobs inside. One you can make it more front wheel drive, one to make more rear wheel drive.
That is really cool.
And
did you start with a car that you just bought, like just a regular? You just went out and bought a Carrera 4?
Because I needed a street car. And then we just took everything out of it and put all this Paris-Dakar.
Super bitchin'.
So this car is sitting in my shop, full Paris-Dakar underneath it.
That's so awesome.
It's cool. It's a cool car.
How was it as a rally car?
Difficult in the beginning because it was funny. I have a funny story that I was racing at Daytona at the 24 Hours in '93.
Okay.
And I was so excited about this program and racing.
What were you driving?
I was driving. I was driving an RSR with Jochen Rohr, and so a few pits away from me was Walter Roll, and I'm thinking, he's the master, this is so cool. I'm going to go tell him about my program. And so I finally got the nerve up. I go over and sit down next to him, and we're sitting on the wall, and I go, Walter, I, introduced myself and everything. I said, I've got this Carrera 4 lightweight that we're going to run in the rally championship. And he says to me, that car must really be, and I'm like hanging on every word. And he goes, terrible.
Shit.
And then
that must be shit. I can really imagine a straight-faced German.
So but then he explained it, and the Paris Dakar cars carried tons of fuel.
Yeah.
Lots of fuel, twice as much as we did. So they had no problem with having too much torque to the front wheels.
Oh.
And also most of Paris Dakar's dead straight stuff. So, you could have pretty much a 50-50 split. So he started explaining to me how to make it work. And once we figured that out, and it was really the 93 season, we had some suspension issues more than anything else. And in 94, we addressed the suspension situation. And in 94, we finished second in the championship and had a number of outright wins. But the cool thing that happened in 94 was Porsche said, let's go to Pikes Peak.
Right.
And they loaned me for that same car a turbo motor.
They just loaned you.
550.
There's a little Andile love for you.
550 horsepower, the same.
I drove it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tate has it.
Tate has it, yeah.
Yeah. So I've driven on this engine.
Yeah,
engine he's talking about.
That motor, was in the IMSA Supercar series with Hurley Haywood and Hans Stuck. And so
Provenance. Hashtag.
So I had that motor. And think of this,
Did you have to give it back?
Oh yeah. Well, and here's a funny story about giving it back. Is that
we lend you this motor, but when you are done, if you don't have a crash, you must give the motor back.
So I've driven this car now a year and a half in the rally championship. Okay, with 300 horsepower. Okay.
Right.
Then all of a sudden they take the car away from me, and I go and settle into the same car, and it's got a 550 horsepower single turbo motor in it with this big knob between the seat that I had to change the switch at different altitudes at Pikes Peak. The whole thing, and it was
just keep cranking it up every 1,000 feet.
And it was just a monster, and it was so cool because it was the same car.
I've driven this motor. It's a fucking monster. It's a big motor.
So then the funny part is I win at Pikes Peak. I won the open class that year, and that's like on Sunday. Monday we rush back with the car. Tuesday, they take it in the shop. They take the turbo motor out, put the normally aspirated motor back in, and I raced the next weekend in Phoenix.
Did it feel awful?
And beside that, it was also a high altitude race, so it was like, it was already losing power.
Oh, Jesus,
so
I can't go back.
It was so funny, but the turbo motor wouldn't have been legal for the rally championship anyway.
Is that engine still in that car?
The 3.8 in
now?
The 3.8 RSR motor. Yeah.
Oh, so it's not nothing.
No, it's not.
It's a good little motor.
And short gears, so it feels plenty healthy.
Yeah. So, in hindsight, because it's 20 years down the road and no one cares, would you have been even more successful or had a better time driving a rear drive 911 in the rally championship compared to the all-wheel drive?
Well, the funny thing about this, because I had the adjustable torque split, it goes against what you'd think. If it was super slippery, like when we ran the winter rallies like Maine or in Michigan, I would run it basically rear-wheel drive.
Right.
Because I couldn't get it to turn. As soon as
just push.
Yeah, just push like crazy.
Yeah.
So surprisingly, if the grip was really good, I wound the torque up to the front. But if it was something I needed to be really loose in, you wound it to the rear. And that's the nice thing is you can pretty much make it a two-wheel drive car. But I will say, because I did the Nora event in Gamroth, one of Gamroth built Baja cars, and we were actually the first 911 to ever finish one of the 1,000-mile events in Mexico.
How was that?
And it was awesome, but that was a rear-wheel drive car. It was so fun.
I bet it was the best.
It's fun. It's like what you're getting to experience.
With my car, I wouldn't even want an all-wheel drive car.
No, because you know what? It doesn't take much power.
No.
And it's just fun. It's just.
Did you see the Psycho Death one he just built?
With the turbo?
Yeah. With 450 horsepower.
I love it.
And it's a 4-speed. And I was like, Lee, I don't get it. Won't this suck? And he goes, no, dude, you don't get it. Like, first is good till 60. He's like, you just put it in first when you're off road. It's like being in an automatic. You don't ever have to shift. He's like, it's perfect. That thing is nuts.
It's good. So basically, and the funny thing is, I mentioned in the rallying thing is all our rallies were run at night.
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff. So at the end of the 94 season, Valvoline had been a great sponsor for both Pikes Peak and the Rally Championship. They said, we got so much press out of Pikes Peak, we'd only want to run Pikes Peak next year and don't want to run the Rally Championship. So I didn't know what to do quite. So I just thought, oh, well.
One race all year.
Yeah. So, but it started my 16 years at Pikes Peak. So
yeah, you have a ridiculous run.
Yeah.
So. Do you have how many trophies are we talking about here?
I have 8 championships in 16 years. So
yeah,
and
sufficient.
The fun thing for me is I have done that both in the dirt and when it was half dirt, half pavement, and done it in full pavement. And now I'm one of the few drivers under 10 minutes. So the whole I've seen the whole progression of the place, which has been really fun.
Have you, was that one time though in the 93 or 94, whatever it was, the only time you did it in an all-wheel drive car? Because I can only really remember you doing it in rear drive cars in recent memory.
No, actually, let's see. No, everything was all-wheel drive till 2010.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, the Cup car was the first car. So, because you know what? The GT2 in 2002.
GT2. Yeah.
And that was a funny year because I ended up, there was a two-wheel drive and a four-wheel drive class, and we won the two-wheel drive class, but we actually beat all the four-wheel drive cars too. But that's not that big of a surprise because Porsche, being rear engine, all the weight's over the rear wheels anyway, the drive wheels, so it really does work. But that
if you're just on a consistent uphill, you'll be able to get it power down pretty good.
Yeah, it really was. But that was in dirt. And that was a handful, that GT2. So.
Is, describe the mental game of driving Pikes Peak in the dirt, which no one can do anymore.
Yeah. People constantly say to me, oh, it must be a lot safer now that it's all paved. And that's really not true.
You're going a lot faster.
You're going a lot, yeah. And the thing that happened is, if you think about it just from a dynamic standpoint, in the dirt, we would rush a corner, we'd brake, we'd rotate the car under braking, so you've moved into slip.
Yeah.
And you're at slip then, and now you're driving on the throttle. And so you're driving on the throttle, moving around. All the energy was released in that transition to the slip.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you take a paved situation with racing tires.
Yeah, now you're trail braking.
You're doing it hard as you can in the corner. You're taking it right up to the edge of adhesion. And if you by chance figured out you were in the wrong place or the corner tightened or anything, you would all of a sudden go into slip on racing tires, which would mean all the energy be released in a way that, is unrecoverable because there's no runoff there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's the changes. And I still love the dirt days. I just like a car that moves around.
Of course, it's just more fun.
Yeah. So and that was so great. And it was funny because it was almost like sprint car racing a few years. Actually, 94, there would be black grooves in the corners, and the cars were really hooked up.
Like they were cutting into.
Yeah. It was really, and you were laying down rubber.
Yeah.
So
Tim and I were just the other day. We're out with these mil spec guys. Have you heard of them? They're taking Hummer H1s.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
then you can disconnect the rear wheel.
Yeah, well, not only are they unshitboxing them and making them like reasonably quality vehicles for once, but a two-wheel drive train with an air locking diff.
Yeah.
So with the weight and the tires and when you're spinning one and you're digging into the earth and like cutting these ridiculous ruts. It's so crazy. It's silly and very fun.
Yeah. So that was really. The dynamic has changed a lot. And I mean, I love the place, but I like a car that moves around the dirt. So.
Yeah. But under 10 minutes.
Yeah, under 10 minutes
is good.
I'm all happy with that.
Where do we go from here on Pikes Peak, though? What's the next marker to aim for?
For me?
Yeah.
For me, I mean, last year I coached the GT4 Club Sport class, which was kind of a half celebrity, half, amateur, but hardly amateur. Everybody was pretty well versed in driving there when it got there. But
that's a good car.
It's a great car,
and it seems fast, but at 14,000 feet, it's pretty slow.
You know what was funny though is that I kind of thought that it would kind of work against it, but the drivers very early on figured out that it's all about momentum.
Yeah.
So the chances
they
they take in the momentum areas, but it was actually really cool to see. And for me to work with Travis Pastrana and J.R. Hildebrand, and, the whole group of guys.
Travis is great.
Travis is so good. And you know what's funny is I got to know Travis when we were both with No Fear clothing company, and we were I went to Race of Champions for many years. The big international event where they invite all the champions. So Travis Pastrana was a competitor there a few years. So I got to know him pretty well. And and then you kind of like fast forward, almost 20 years, and he's still the same guy.
Yeah,
he's just so good.
He's fucking alive.
Yeah.
How about that?
And he's such a good guy. And I had a lot of fun with him. One of the
greatest rally crash videos of all time.
Oh, yeah.
His reaction after that roll. That's when it really solidified, because it wasn't like, you okay? He's like, woohoo! Like he was almost like, let's do that one again. Yeah. Like, woof.
No, he's such a quick study and understands all this stuff so well. And I was so impressed with him there. And I mean, he ended up winning the class too. But this year I'll be coaching. But they also Porsche's also said last year they wanted me to just focus on coaching, and this year I've have made an entry into it, but I don't know what I'll be running yet.
GT2 RS, right?
I'd like to something like that, so it's good.
Do they hook you up? You a little dollar car action or something?
Not, I take care of the programs. Obviously, Porsche's good to me in a lot of ways, but it's usually I have to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
So it's good.
What is in the Zwart Stabla at the moment? The 964 and the 906 they're two heavy hitters we just covered.
Yeah.
And you drove up in a Macan that I think has like a ton of miles on it.
Yeah,
right?
it has 125,000 miles on it.
It's pretty good for a Macan.
Yeah.
How's the PDK holding up? Good?
Everything's been good on it. It's funny because you just did this million miles thing.
Fuck yeah! I should have let you drive it. You'd have loved it.
Well, and it's
car is fantastic.
It opened a lot of questions for me too, because the funny thing is that I several times in my career I've done advertising campaigns based on million-mile cars. Certainly, Mercedes always did it. So I did one of the Mercedes ones, and I did a Volvo one.
Volvo is always about it too. Yeah.
And I was thinking the other day that
Lexus didn't care.
It just, but it's not even that. It's like nobody really cares anymore. Yeah. And that was an attribute. They were marketing the car because it could last 1 million miles. And I did a job in Morocco a while back, and in Morocco, every taxi is a Mercedes, but it's not a new Mercedes.
No, it's a 300D.
Yeah, and they have people sitting on the roof. It's like overloaded.
Well, there's the cycle, right, of unkillable cars, right? So they start as like they start in Europe as like aristocrat cars,
right.
Then they become cabs 3 years later in Paris, right? The nice French cabs.
Yeah.
Then they go to like
to Northern Africa,
sub-Saharan Africa, and then they end up in Oman.
Yeah.
So
as some sort of mortar testing.
We went to Oman a couple of years ago. Everybody was rocking a mid-90s Lexus. Everybody had one. So
funny.
like I think there's probably a lot of million-mile Lexuses in the Middle East, but like nobody gives a shit. But
so
like Lexus didn't really care either. But I was proud of us for doing it.
I thought it was awesome because
project.
it was like it actually made me think about the times we shot million-mile cars, and also how you have to, like, I'm 125,000 miles on my Macan.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.5 years, almost 4 years now.
Right.
And that's a lot of driving.
Yeah.
But that's nothing compared to how did that I remember how the Mercedes, the last one I shot for 1 million miles, I remember how it got there.
So the thing about million-mile cars is like generally I think in most cases you need one really fastidious owner with a really absurd commute. That's kind of the normal arc.
Yeah.
The guy who checks telephone poles on the highway for a job and is just on the road, whatever. For me, I was the 6th owner of this fucking thing.
Wow.
And then I put
what year was it?
A 96.
96. Okay.
So the first owner leased it, normal lease. Second owner bought it off lease, drove it and drove it from 36,000 miles to 750,000.
Really?
Yeah, in 12 years.
And what did he do?
I don't know.
Really?
I've never found the dude.
Because my Mercedes guy was a West Coast rep living in Portland and would basically go L.A., Portland, L.A., Portland.
I would guess it was something like that.
Yeah.
And then the owners after that, between 750 and 897, where I bought it, basically just did the bare minimum to keep the thing on the road.
Really?
And so when I bought it, it was in a pretty rough state. When it crossed the million, it was in significantly better shape than when I got it, to the point where I would not hesitate to get it and drive it across the country right now.
What were the biggest wear points? Like, what made you notice
at $1 million,
it?
Everything's a wear point. What made you notice its age? First off, everyone who drove it uniformly said, with 100% across the board that they would have not guessed it had more than like 200,000 on it.
Really?
So it was really, really nice. The engine was really smooth.
Was it had it been rebuilt?
Never.
Really?
The engine had never been opened.
That's insane.
Gearbox 3 times.
Really?
Yeah. I had to do a gearbox rebuild and it was $3,600. So I would say that was a big one.
Yeah.
I did shocks and bushings and shit like that, and there wasn't any one maintenance item that was horrid aside from the gearbox rebuild. Everything else was fine. It wasn't that bad. They have a tendency to leak. The power steering pumps will leak onto the alternator and then kill the car.
What was the interior like?
Decent.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to luminol and UV it, but it was okay. Everything worked. AC, heat, power, everything worked.
It's funny
no
because
problems.
I have an original 911 with 60,000 plus miles on it, and it's a 70s.
Okay.
And literally, you're like sitting in it like this. The seat is it looks normal until you sit in
but
it.
It's
and
like
then
collapsed.
goes
The driver's seat wasn't the best, but the back seat was in pretty good shape. It was a lot better than
Was
you
it
think.
original paint?
No, the paint was fucked.
Okay.
Someone had just rattle canned it. The paint was fucked. There was no coming back from the paint.
Well, I mean, seriously, congrats on that. I thought that was really good.
I'm glad you. So this dude Freddie has it in Florida right now.
Yeah.
And he's like a YouTuber also, and he does like crazy builds, and he's putting a turbo on it.
Well, so much for that engine.
Well, that was the rule was he could have the car for free, do whatever the hell he wants with it. I signed it over to him. He owns it, but when he blows the engine, I would like an engine block coffee table.
Oh, that's good.
That's our deal.
That's good.
I think an engine block coffee table with a rod sticking out the side would be just about perfect.
Did you know going into it that it wouldn't go over 1 million miles? It'd just go 999? Had somebody tipped you off?
A bit into the project, I did learn that.
Because I would have never bet on that. I would have thought it just rolled over.
It's digital, and it just sticks at nines. Fine. So on the one hand, mildly anticlimactic. On the other hand, permanent badge of honor.
Yeah. So totally.
That's the upside.
That's super cool. So
the car was like, honestly, if you were to go out right now and spend $12,000 to $15,000 on the nicest LS400 you could find, it would be one of the greatest vehicles ever produced and that you could ever own.
Really?
Truly,
That's good.
Any 90s Lexus is built to an absurd standard of quality, especially the LS.
That's good to know.
I'm writing a piece for Road and Track about it.
Oh, good.
I'm like so excited. This car that I got on Craigslist that was like fucking forgotten about in Florida is going to be like a feature in Road and Track, and I'm like nudging a Kulski to make it a cover. Like it would just be such a ridiculous thing.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
We got off the photography subject, but I brought something for you.
Did you bring me a poster?
Yeah, I brought you
What is
something. And this is it could enlighten another subject. But so in the early 80s.
Oh, this is going to be so good, whatever it is. Wherever you're going with this, it's going to be amazing.
In the early 80s, any souvenir store, especially around the wharf in San Francisco or whatever, you used to hear the sound in the back of the store of clack, 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 clack. And there were these walls of posters. They were all in metal frames. Metal frames.
Yeah.
So the biggest selling poster in those was Farrah Fawcett.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The biggest selling poster was this, which is mine.
Ooh, let's see what we have here. I need to be very careful. Let's see. If he opens it up. Oh, dude. Oh, Jeff Zwart. Look at that. That might even be my car. It
could be.
It looks a lot like my car. It really does. Wow, that's so lovely. This for the audio audience. This is a red Lamborghini Countach with a tan interior and gold motherfucking wheels. Oh, you know what? It's not my car because these mirrors are red and my mirrors are black.
Oh, well.
That dude, thank you, Jeff.
You're
That's
welcome.
So awesome.
You're welcome. So,
oh my god, that's the coolest.
It's funny. I knew you'd appreciate that. So,
I 100% appreciate it. That's an amazing gift.
The funny thing is that
beautiful.
That was the car we used for the Road and Track World's Fastest Cars in that day.
Oh, really?
And it was in those days, the World's Fastest Cars didn't really progress, bringing in the Yellow Bird and all that stuff. It was just a Ferrari Boxster and this, a Ferrari Boxster and this, and so. we were at TRC in Ohio.
Faster, I must know.
Yeah, well, the boxer one. So,
no.
but it was so cool to have those two cars. Well, the funny thing, here's how different the time was. Lamborghini, all the Lamborghini officials were there and all the Ferrari officials were there, and Phil Hill was driving, I think, and we had all the road and track guys, and so we were sending these cars around, and of course the Lamborghini's having trouble.
Yeah.
And, but both cars, there was a 7-mile oval, I think, at TRC, and it was a crazy flat out oval, and I shot all these pictures, and I just had a great time. Well, Lamborghini thought, oh, this is great. We got, a road and track photographer to shoot it. So I get a call a little while later, and they say, would you take the Countach and just shoot pictures with it? And
yes.
so I said, sure. So I'm like, we're newlyweds, and I got this Lamborghini going down the street in our neighborhood and everything, and all the neighbors and what we're doing.
Did you enjoy your Countach experience?
Oh yeah, it was like so cool. I just remember it was really hard to see out of compared to anything. But the times were so different, and I was laughing the other day because so I shot the Lamborghini, the LM02.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we called it the Lamborghini.
That's a good. Yeah.
So
yeah.
and you remember Valentino, the test driver. So he I used to go over every year to shoot the latest, greatest Lamborghini. So I went with him every year, and we'd shoot Diablos and Murcielagos and all that stuff. He's so good. But I remember being in the LM02, and I'm sitting next to him, and he's hauling ass as he does through all the area and everything. And
he only has one speed.
Yeah, and he turns to me and he goes, "You know what, Jeff, I like about this? People get out of your way." and it really was true, because they'd gotten to the point that any Murcielago or whatever would be kind of like, people would be pissed at him, like,
in Santa Gata, they're like, "Get the fuck out of here, stop it."
When the LM02 came along, it was like, whoa, I'm out of here, I can't possibly do that. But you were dishing on the cup holder.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the new car. Okay, so here's what it took me back.
In the Urus.
But, okay, yes.
It's a tiny little cup holder.
Okay, but here's what it took me back to, which I thought was so funny. So when I was shooting for Road and Track magazine, we went on the press trips, to shoot the cars in the latest grade. But there were two waves. There was long lead and short lead.
Right.
Long lead were the monthly magazines, and it wouldn't be out for a couple months. And there'd be the short lead, much like the Wall Street Journal or something, and they would come along later. So, and I'm thinking, how times have changed, because I remember people going on the long lead and be worried 2 months from now about complaining about something that they'd hear from. And I was thinking, Matt's in here complaining about a cup holder where the PR guy could literally whack him in the back of the head while you're complaining.
I complained to his face. I don't bullshit. I complained to his face.
But you just realize the spontaneity of how this stuff works now.
Got to be ready on the fly.
Yeah, because you're literally in our day of
I hadn't even driven the car yet. I got there. I was in that nice La Quinta, not the La Quinta, like the original La Quinta, the dope one,
the one with all the.
They had a nice breakfast, and everyone I think the people at Lamborghini are amazing. Like, all those Italians are completely out of their minds. They're super funny, and they're just nuts. And I like their thought process on things. But I called that out right there. I
just thought that was so funny, because I thought the press guy could literally be sitting behind him. So.
I complained to Janina, and she laughed. She thought it was very funny. She was like, "They're Italian. They only drink out of tiny little cups." I was like, okay.
That's good.
We got a bunch of questions from our audience.
Oh, really?
Can you punch in on that, Tim, so I can read a little better, please? Folks can donate in the super chat for the next 5 or so minutes live, folks. So we don't go too long on this Friday night. But Nithin says, some friends are coming to LA next month, and they want to get some cars in Turo and hit the canyons. We're staying closer to Beverly Hills. There's only 2 areas to drive in LA, really: Malibu, canyons, Angeles Forest. From Beverly Hills, you're pretty much halfway between them. Yeah, Angeles Forest. If you really want to go drive,
go
Angeles
early.
Forest. Yeah, go early in the morning. Do not go on a weekend. Go on a weekday and have fun. Stay on your side of the double yellow. Those are the 2 areas. And actually, the third one is up by Lake Castaic. There's a lovely Lake Hughes Road.
Yes, that's a good one.
Is a good sleeper, spectacular road. Joe says, I'm on the fence between an 05 Mustang GT and a Nissan 350Z or Infiniti G35. The money is about the same. Which would you suggest with a focus on drifting? I mean, look, to build a drift car, you need I'd say at least at least a couple of 100 horsepower, rear wheel drive with a limited slip differential and manual transmission. Either of those will suffice.
Yeah, and I'd say there's there's certainly a lot of 350Zs running around that have drifted. So,
there are.
Yeah,
they're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I think personally, an 05 and up Mustang GT will make a more durable drift car.
I'd agree.
I think so. Yep. Maximum Motorsports makes some good parts. Barton MD says, thank you for the entertainment. You're welcome, sir. Joe says, what happened to what happened to a 750? Has a video of mine gone missing? I don't know. Allegedly, one of my videos is missing.
Huh.
I don't know. I'll go find it, Joe.
One.
Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate it. That is not a dumb question, as you suspected it was. I will go find it for you later. Tex says, I'm getting married. Congratulations. Yes. Jeff, Church of Petrol says, any upgrades coming to the Turbo GT3 this year for Pikes Peak? Yeah, that's a sidebar. What is the Turbo GT3?
The Turbo GT3 was... It came
Can you
about.
get a picture of that, Timmy?
Yeah, it came about in 2010. I ran a GT3 Cup car, normally aspirated,
like the race car.
Yeah, 450 horsepower. It was the first. Everything else I had driven was production based, so this was the first race car. And it was like you suddenly sat in there and you had sequential box and everything. It felt like you were wearing the car. It was awesome, and it was half dirt then, so the car was a blast to drive.
What tires do you drive on a half dirt?
Rain. We ran a rain tire,
okay.
So we ran Pirelli rain tires that year, and it was just.
Whoever shot that picture wins.
Yeah, that's the Turbo.
Who shot that?
I think that's Larry Chen.
Is that Larry?
Yeah,
Larry's he's fucking great.
He's awesome.
Present company excluded, but Larry is the other.
I just had a little meeting with Larry. I just am so.
Did you see the poster? Did he show you the poster that we did? Someone asked about this.
Oh yes, for
charity
for the fire. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. He showed me that.
The shot is fucking
It looked
incredible.
Awesome. Looks awesome.
It's a stitched shot, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, he showed me that. That was super cool.
He's one of my fucking favorite. I love him.
So 2010 we ran that GT3 Cup car, normally aspirated. 2011 Porsche, we came together saying let's do the event where you drive from here in a GT2 RS.
Yeah, you drove from LA.
From LA to Pikes Peak. Put numbers on it there, go race, and try to win the class. I ended up losing.
It sounds cool, but that drive really shouldn't have been a big deal, right? It was a street car.
It had full cage and all that kind of stuff in it, but it was fine, and we rolled along, and it was great, and no big deal. And then I get to there, we put the numbers on, put a few sponsors on, raced, and we ended up losing just by like a second and a half, I think, at the class. But we set a production car record there with that car.
It was completely stock, right?
Yeah. But what was cool, the GT2 RS was 620 horsepower, and it was fully 620 at the summit, and it just pulled like nothing I'd ever driven there. And so I come back from that, and I go, come on. The GT3 Cup car is the best handling car I've ever driven. GT2 RS was the most power I've ever driven. Let's put those two things together. Well, it didn't exist. So we got together BBI and Batim and Joey Seeley, and they all combined their talents together to create this Turbo Cup car, which was an absolute monster. Because, to deliver 750, 800 horsepower at the summit, it's like working over 1,000 horsepower, at the summit. So it was just a crazy car. There were a lot of things that had to happen in there that made the reliability tough to get it all dialed in the first year. So we ended up coming back 3 times, but we ended up winning there, and that's the car that I went under 10 minutes into. So.
I drove a car that had a slightly milder version of that engine. Mm-hmm. And it was a psycho death machine. Yeah. That Swan one, the white one with the sequential in it. I drove that on a closed road. And it was real crazy. Yeah. I can't imagine the full race car,
It was a blast.
Bonsai tune version of that thing.
No ABS and no traction control. And so it was great.
Is that car, that's your car, right?
Yeah,
you own
that was
car?
my car. Yep.
Yeah. Are you going to continue racing that car?
No, that car has been retired. And so this year, that's why we're trying to decide what we'll run this year. So if we can.
Is there a new class you could enter that would be somehow like?
No, it's a matter. I mean, I know that I'm coaching this year for Porsche Motorsport again, and I like that. And so if I don't find something that I'm really comfortable with, I'll just coach. But
could you do Would you find the fun in, like, let's say, like racing a 356 or something up the hill, or would that
Come on, I drive a 356 with snow tires.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. But like, would you find it fun to enter the race, or would it just not be fast enough to be worth your time?
That would be tough at 60 horsepower at sea level. It would be tough. But funny enough, I drove that Pre-A to the top of Pikes Peak one day. And I had to go to first gear through the last couple of hairpins. And I was actually worried I was going to make it. I thought this is going to be really ugly if I can't make it. Oh, yeah.
Let's speaking of which, other cars, we stopped at the Macan, but other cars in your garage, you have this 356 that is a very early car, right?
Yeah. Well, I have the 50th Porsche that was ever made, which is the Gmund. It's on display at the Peterson Museum right now. And that's, hand formed over, wood.
Whose is older, yours or Jerry's?
His by 20 number. Well,
20 numbers?
About 50, 20 numbers about.
Yeah, it's like a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, not quite a week in those days. Yeah. It was a little longer than that. And then I've got the 53 Pre-A, and because of my interest in rallying, I've also got the works cars from 1971, the 914 6GT and the East African Safari car. So I've got the I call it the hot and cold of 71 because I got the Monte Carlo car and the African car. So.
Do all the cars get driven?
Yeah, everything's got historical plates on it, and including the 906, and it's good. So.
That's super cool. I love the canoe on the because it was on display, and I told my friend, I was like, he drives that like that, and he was like, no, he doesn't. I was like, he drives that with a giant canoe on the roof.
That's when you want the wind going in your direction.
When I see your Instagram and you're like on the side of some lake and you're taking that canoe down off the I'm like, God, that guy knows how to live, man. That shit looks great.
I know, it's pretty cool. But it is
do you
funny.
canoe locally ever? Or do you only travel
I go on
to
the
canoe?
ocean. I go out in the ocean in it. So
can we canoe together?
Camp
Wamposset 94. You're winning Pikes Peak. I was canoeist of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, I was. My J-stroke is dope.
We'll have to work that out. And even that you can describe a J-stroke. That's good.
I know what a J-stroke is. That's awesome. Most of the way there. Canoeing is fucking awesome.
It is pretty funny when occasionally the wind will hit it and shift it, and it shifts a little bit, and all of a sudden you're driving like it's completely out of alignment sideways.
You're like your sail has kicked in. Yeah.
So you want to keep it dead straight over the car.
Yeah. Nick Hansen says, Jeff, regarding Luft 6. Luft 6 is what, May 11th? I believe it was just announced. Yep. I got my text from Pat.
Yep.
Will I be able to park my air-cooled Porsche inside the venue, or will the venue be reserved for curated cars only?
Well, we will be establishing the number of cars inside the venue, and there will be a sign-up process. And I would say that if you're early in your sign-up and you present the passionate plea, chances are you'll get to park inside.
Sweet. Yeah. I'm excited. I just marked my calendar. I talked to Pat, and he said that I can come.
Yeah, good.
So
we'll give you space, and I'll personally park your
car.
For
my purple rally car.
Well, I think we'll have a good space for all sorts of rally cars.
I'm taking it on my second ski trip of 2019 next weekend. I'm very excited.
Back up to Mammoth?
To Mammoth, yeah.
That's good.
It's so lovely to drive.
I'm glad to hear that.
Daily driving a safari car is fucking great.
Well, I'm a big fan of Lee and all the stuff he's done, and I'm really glad to have a good one on the West Coast.
Yeah, you have to. Have you driven one yet?
Actually not.
You have to try it. I'd love to get your thoughts.
We shake down the Loof cars that we've done, the rally cars for there, and
those are a little more extensive. Those builds.
They're pretty dialed. When I got out of the last one we built, I was saying I'm ready to go run a stage rally in it. Because it's
there.
Proper. It's ready
there.
to go.
Yeah, no, mine isn't that.
With Gamroth doing the motor and everything, it's a pretty awesome car.
Well, Marco just redid my motor. He rebuilt my motor.
Oh, good.
Full rebuild, and it's
Marco
ripping.
can do a good job on that.
He does.
Sure, so.
He does, and it's ripping. It feels really, really strong.
Good.
I'm very excited about it. Okay, so Luft 6 is May 11th in Los Angeles somewhere.
Yes.
Don't know where yet. Ted says, is there an update? Oh, an update for the Lambo poster available to order. It will be very soon. I thought it's probably next week. I just saw the poster. Apparently it's hard to get a lot of posters made.
Really?
According to Matt Crook, he might be full of shit. I don't know.
I could have sent you somewhere.
I don't know. We'll come to you the next one. Very soon. It looks amazing. W. Ward says, blasted Radwood in Austin. I saw the pictures of Radwood in Austin. It looked cool. Have you been to Radwood yet?
I haven't been to Radwood, but I'll tell you that
Bro, you're missing out.
But I love the fact that the things that you and I've probably always looked at as cool are now being recognized as cool.
Yes.
And you can have a rotary Mazda and suddenly everybody gets
Bro,
it.
2 Mosler Consuliers were at the, I mean,
that's it.
Yeah, and you have to bring the 964 out. It's the perfect period race
that
car.
would be good.
You told me a fucking great story about running out of gas or something on PCH, having to abandon that car on the side of the road.
It was not good.
Oh man, Dante Zero says my dream ride is either a Lancia Delta Integrale, good taste, or an Audi RS2 Avant. If it was your money, which would you get? I've never driven an RS2. Have you?
RS2s are cool, and actually, because of the timing now, they're legal here. And I've been thinking about getting one for Colorado.
I've never driven one. Are they fun?
Well, was cool is in the time when I was shooting at Weissach, they were always the one you hopped into, opened up the hatch, and shot out of the back of to shoot Porsches there. So I certainly got to go around Weissach a few times in the awkward seat.
Were they cool?
They were really cool. Yeah, they were really cool.
I don't see them very often.
They made a lot of them, and they haven't been legal here, but they're going to be, except for California. So
I drove an Integrale. I don't know if it was an Evo 1 or 2. It was an Evo, but it was really, really fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly comfortable. The seating position was a little weird, but it was fun as shit to drive. I get it.
And I love how they're just low key. It's like they blend
But the
in.
the wheels, the Integrale wheels, the shit. Daniel says, I'm looking for a second car for autocross, rallycross, and track days. The Evo 9 and the 0507 STI are the obvious answers. Driven both, like both. Any other wild card recommendations for dirt and tarmac you would recommend for give or take $20,000? Jeff?
I think you got to go with the STI just because there's so much stuff available for them.
Yeah.
And it would, but as far as an alternate, there really isn't any.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go front wheel drive, you could do front wheel drive, for sure. There's a lot more options there than all your old Hondas and stuff come into play.
I mean, there's when you get into that zone, there is a lot, but yet I think in an all-wheel drive car, it's got to be.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at an Evo and STI, you're at you're at where that's at.
I did when I ran the World Championship Rally in New Zealand. I drove an Evo, and I'd literally gotten out of my Porsche one weekend, gone to New Zealand, and then drove the Evo, and it was like, wow, this is the way rally cars are supposed to feel because it really was proper. Yeah. It was really cool.
I'll throw a wild card out if you're willing to drive on the right side of the car. Because now you might be able to get some weirdo Pulsar GTI-R or some a Starlet or some kind of bizarre inexpensive yet cool Japanese thing. So that or even a Skyline, honestly. A GTST Skyline could be super fun. Rear wheel drive. What else do you want to plug? Luftgegalt is not that you need my plugs, but what do you got going on? Anything
we've got a film coming out in September.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that. Should we talk about that real quick? The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Yeah, so Art of Racing in the Rain was a book that was
book no one's ever heard of.
It definitely heard of 10 years ago.
I'm fucking kidding. Everyone's heard of the Art of Racing in the Rain. I'm joking. I'm sorry if that went over your head.
I thought within this room, how could it not?
No, everyone's heard of the Art of Racing in the Rain. Garth Stein, great book.
Garth did such a great job, and it was a book that when I read it, it just captivated me on what the visuals could be. Especially, I was studying to be a veterinarian, so I'm all into the dog world anyway, and to read from the dog's perspective and kind of see all that, it really conjured up a lot of great visuals with me. And I actually went to one of Garth's book signings in the very beginning,
in the day,
just to see him, and I felt like a stalker. But at the end of the book signing, I said, Jeff Zwart, and gave a little introduction, and then I ended up talking to him for quite a while about it, and we both said, it's natural film, and it's everything that it could be, but yet it took forever. And then Patrick Dempsey fortunately bought the rights to it, and he really worked and worked and worked in it. It was almost there, greenlit in one studio and almost the next one, and then finally Fox 2000 came along and took it, and Neil Moritz is the executive producer.
Oh, Neil Moritz of Fast and Furious
fame. He was great, and this all came together. So naturally, racing is the underlying theme to the whole thing, but it's not the bulk of the book. But I got called in to basically be second unit director to direct all the racing, and it ultimately led to shooting all the car things. And I shot the opening title sequence, and I shot the end scenes, and it's a really, I've seen the film now, and it's really great. It's a bit like Field of Dreams. You don't have to like baseball.
Yeah.
And that's my main thing is you don't have to like racing. You don't have to anything. It's just a wonderful movie. Yeah. And Kevin Costner is the voice of the dog. So
that's
it's
great.
Just awesome. So
it is like Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
So you got to work with a bunch of fun racing drivers who got to both race for real and for fake, right?
Yeah. Part of the idea was just to make it legit. I, having dealt with IMSA for so long, my natural idea was, let's go to IMSA. Let's see if we can embed ourselves in a few races and work around the teams that are actually racing. And so we were, there's a real reality to it that's there because it is real.
Yeah, in the way that Le Mans uses the real race or whatever, whatever have you. That's so cool. Yeah. When is it coming out?
It'll be out in September, and it's going to be a great launch to it. Milo Ventimiglia is the main character, and cool. Amanda Seyfried's his wife, and so it's a great cast, and it was really, it's a sad story, but yet it's leaves so uplifting in it that it's really a positive story. So
that's awesome.
It was a fun year for me because I worked on that film, and then I also did those wacky Red Bull films of taking the Formula One car from San Francisco clear to Miami. So we had a good time with doing all that Red Bull stuff too.
That's so cool, man. You are on a wave.
Having a good time.
That's awesome, man. I'm super stoked you could come in.
Well, thank you.
Excuse me. I apologize. My throat is scratchy today. Last real quick question before we get out. Someone wants prescription Dylan sunglasses. Email me, matt@thesmokingtire.com if you want prescriptions. I forward you to their optometrist who is in-house. Excuse me. Sorry. Any of their plastic framed glasses, like the sports kind of wraparound ones, work well under my scooter helmet. Thank you. Jeff Zwart is Zwart on Instagram. ZWART. Any other platforms you use or just Instagram?
Nope, just that. I'm a photographic guy.
Yeah, I figured. So. And your Instagram is a great follow. I strongly recommend. And May 11th, Los Angeles. I will see you there.
Yep.
My purple Porsche. And the Smoking Tire Podcast is powered by Shout Engine. You know the drill. Get your own podcast at shoutengine.com. It's easy. All you need is a microphone, connection to the internet, and ideally something to say. Have a good weekend, folks. I'll see you Sunday evening Pacific time with Matt Hardigree from Jalopnik and Now Drive on NBC Sports.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Good night, guys. Have fun. Bye.
Thank you.